Tonight, an embattled newspaper gets stopped in its tracks. It won't be able to out more gun owners, at least not in one New York county. The Journal News already under fire for publishing a map locating gun owners in several New York City suburbs. But today, Putnam County refusing to give out its gun owners' names.
I've served here, the people of Putnam County, for 35 years. I'm a man who follows the rule of law. We're not talking about the rule of law anymore. We're talking about endangering our citizens. These laws were written almost 30 years ago. 30 years ago, we didn't have computers. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have social media. And we certainly didn't have Google Maps. And I think that's what really broke the camel's back on this request.
Fox News correspondent David Lee Miller is live with the latest. David Lee.
Greta, Dennis Sant, the county clerk here in Putnam County, got a hero's welcome at that news conference earlier today. He was interrupted repeatedly with applause. When he was done speaking, he got a standing ovation. Now, for the backstory, the newspaper you mentioned, the Journal News, shortly after the rampage at the Sandy Hook Elementary School, filed Freedom of Information requests with 3 counties, Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam. 2 of those counties complied, handing over the names and addresses of people in those counties who had pistol permits. They then went and published that information online using an interactive map. All you have to do is click on one of the colored dots on that map, and up comes the name and address of an individual in that county who has a pistol permit. Putnam County, however, decided not to comply. The county clerk here is saying it was not only an invasion of privacy, but it would be dangerous to release this information. And he cited a number of examples today. He said women who might have an order of protection and have a gun would have their addresses and names released. He also mentioned the fact that many active duty and retired police officers live in this county. Their details would also be released and put online. In fact, I talked to one retired cop. He told me, and I'm going to quote him now, Greta, "I don't want people I had unpleasant encounters with to look up my home address." Now, as for this newspaper, the Journal News, it is not backing down. It says that under the Freedom of Information Act, this information must be made public, and when it is, they want to put it online. And the state agency that dispenses legal advice on Freedom of Information requests here in New York says that as of now, the Putnam County officials are violating state law by not releasing this information. The county is digging in its heels. It says it will go to court, do whatever is necessary, but this data will not be released. The county executive, to quote her, Greta, she said, "No surrender, no retreat." It looks like this is one battle that's going to end up in court. Greta?
Indeed. David Lee, thank you. And New York State Senator Greg Ball calling the Journal News editors asinine. Well, and there's more. He says they have gone out of their way to place a virtual scarlet letter on law-abiding firearms owners. And still more this today. Senator Ball delivering this message to the paper's readers.
I'm proud to know that the insanity of the Journal News has hit a rock wall, and that rock wall is the common sense of Putnam County. I will fight with you until hell freezes over, and then we're going to fight on the ice. We're going to hold this Journal News editorial board accountable, and I'm asking everybody who's listening today, cancel your subscriptions, do it twice, make sure your neighbors do the same, and let's make sure that this is a wake-up call and no other paper ever does this again.
Senator Ball joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Sir, you just said in that press conference that you're going to hold the newspaper, you want to hold them accountable. How do you intend to do that?
You know, this was a malicious slap in the face, and it has to be underlined again and again. We're talking about tens of thousands of people who obeyed the law. We've got to make sure, number one, that we use the power of the purse and that people out there use social networking to make sure that they cancel their subscriptions, make sure their neighbors cancel their subscriptions, and that we continue to come together as a community to show the boneheadedness of the eggheads at the Journal News editorial board. This isn't the first time they've done this, Greta. They did this a couple years ago, but before we even saw really the social media come together in the way it has. And the point has to be underscored that literally we're talking about victims of domestic violence that are trying to protect themselves, and in some instances their young families. We have a lot of cops, retired law enforcement in all throughout the Hudson Valley. who put away the worst of the worst. We're talking about New York City. You're talking about gang members, murderers, rapists, thugs. Now the Journal News, for whatever reason, no reason at all, created an interactive map that literally within 30 seconds, those offenders can be on the virtual doorstep of these individuals. So we've introduced legislation. It has had bipartisan support. This isn't a Second Amendment issue necessarily. I have gun control advocates who are just as upset as Second Amendment advocates. We've got to make sure that we pass legislation to make sure that this information, while publicly accessible, cannot be dispersed in the way the Journal News did.
All right. Well, the problem that you have is what you said in the last sentence, that it's public information. That's your first problem. So that, the paper, unless you move fast, is going to win this because public information is public information. You said that you've introduced legislation to prevent this. Have you done it on an emergency basis? Have you gotten your colleagues together? Because if you want to stop this, things move very slowly in legislation. Things can move very quickly in the courtroom with a TRO or an injunction. They can move a lot faster than you can. What have you done to accelerate your legislation and move it towards signature if you want to block this?
Well, two things. This is going to be a Janus-headed monster. First is that, thank God, that the elected officials and public officials all throughout Putnam County didn't just hand over the information. They have the intestinal fortitude to stand firm and to take the Journal News head on. And there's a legal process here. There will be an appeal. That'll go to the county executive. This will work its way through the courts, and I do think that we're going to have a little bit of time here, and we're going to employ every legal measure whatsoever. Like I said, from a privacy perspective, the current legislation has bipartisan support. Now, one thing that may be on our side is that there's...
I don't think you have time. I actually don't think you have much time because they're going to go to court and get a TRO and get the records. I can't imagine if it's a public record, unless there's some law that I don't know about, they're going to turn it over. They could probably do it within 24 hours on a TRO or injunction. You have to move. If you want to block it, you have to change the law, and just introducing legislation isn't enough. You've got to, you've got to move it faster. And that's what I know. What have you done to accelerate that process if you want to checkmate the newspaper in releasing this information?
Well, Greta, I want to thank you for your sense of urgency, and you're more than welcome to join me in my cause and rally Americans and New Yorkers to push this governor and this legislature in the right direction. All I can tell you is that I'm not going to back down, and I'm going to fight like holy hell to make sure that we get this done. And one thing that is working in our favor is it looks like there's going to be what they call a gun control package hitting its way through the Assembly, through the Senate, and any part of any comprehensive package, we would want to make sure that these privacy concerns are addressed in that comprehensive package.
But Senator, the problem is let me go back to is that if you want to do this, you really have to move sort of extra fast. As a practical matter. I guess maybe the newspaper won't go to court. I don't know, but
I haven't been sleeping in Cancun. I'm kind of on top of this issue and have been for a little while.
I understand that.
I thank your urgency, but if you can find somebody who can work harder and hit harder than me, let me know and I'll stand behind him or her. But until then, I'm the one leading the charge, and I promise you, if there's any ability or for anybody to get it done, we're going to get this done.
And Senator, thank you for joining us, but not for 1 second did I think that you're not working on this hard. I'm just wondering how you sort of rally your troops because I don't think that this is the type of thing that if you want to accomplish it, you can do it alone. I think you need your colleagues. But anyway, Senator, thank you, sir.
Got it. God bless.